excited on today's program. Mr. Bertie Higgins, a good friend. We've known each other for years. He's a tremendous artist. One of the biggest songs ever, Key Largo. He's doing a lot of things now we're going to talk about. So please welcome to the program, Mr. Bertie Higgins. Bertie, hello.
Good to hear from you. Man, Jerry, what's going on?
Calling you from Hotlanta. You remember Hotlanta? That's you and I knew each other years ago. We've been friends for a while. You were living in Atlanta.
I lived there about, I don't know, 10 years.
Well,
and then I went home to Florida, and then I stayed there for a while, and now I've been in Burbank, California for the last 10 years.
And doing a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about. But you're originally from Florida. Just kind of briefly, give us a little bit of bio background on how the business you worked with, I think, Tommy Roe, and tell us about that before Key Largo.
Well, you know, I was born and raised in a little Greek fishing village called Tarpon Springs, about 25 or 30 miles from Tampa on the Gulf Coast. What a great way to grow up. Small town, maybe 8,000 people. It was like growing up in Europe, kind of, because of the Greek influence there. And I started off as a water boy, and when I say water boy, I was sponge diver, I was spear fisherman. I did all the things on the water and spent almost every day, of course, on the water. Then a lot of time in the Florida Keys. But when I was about 18, we formed a little band called, actually Landing the Impressions, and Tommy Roe came into our lives through Bill Lowry in Atlanta, and renamed the band the Romans. But we had already changed the name to R-O-M-A-N-S, but Tommy Roe came in, and of course it became the R-O-E-M-A-N-S, and that's when Beatlemania was exploding, so he wanted to take him and his band to England for a tour, a Brian Epstein tour, by the way. And we went over to England for a couple of months and toured all over the British Isles.
Was this prior to the Beatles hitting America?
No. This was after they hit.
Okay.
And the English, the British invasion, as it was called at the time, was flowing steadily into the United States with groups like, Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Searchers, the Rolling Stones. The list goes on.
Well, now I knew Tommy and know Tommy. He's a good friend. And did you hear the story about Tommy supposedly did a tour with the Beatles prior to them being big and brought back a tape, tried to convince Mr. Lowry here in Atlanta about them and couldn't get anyone to salute?
Yeah, I recall something similar. I did know that Tommy toured with the Beatles. I think he was top of the roster, and they were somewhere down the pecking order. Yeah, I do recall all that. But we started recording with Tommy. Did a couple of recordings, and the band kind of branched off on their own and joined a label at the time called ABC Paramount and put out, 4 or 5 singles. It didn't do much. But I was playing drums at the time. I wasn't a guitar player, singer, songwriter. And I realized when I was about 19, I really needed to write songs, so I picked up the guitar. My mother taught me ukulele when I was about 12 years old, so I picked up a 4-string tenor guitar and started banging away, trying to write songs. And God, I must have written 100 of them then. And
well, tell us now. Let's jump to Atlanta. How'd you end up in Atlanta, and how did that all come about?
Well, it all started with Tommy Roe's group, of course. We lived in it. We kept an apartment in Atlanta. The Romans did for a couple of years, but I was playing local clubs down in Tampa Bay, and had a big following as a single acoustic guy on a stool with his Martin guitar, banging away and singing these songs. And I had a big fan following. And it was partially because the Romans were real popular down there, and I managed to gain my own popularity as a single songwriter, singer, and I became very comfortable in that. And I said, I was pushing 30 years old, and I went, you're not going to make it out of here. You cannot get to where you're trying to be. So logically, I said, well, you have still many contacts in Atlanta, and the Atlanta music industry is still very vibrant. So I pulled up my tent and jumped in my car and drove to Atlanta and moved in. But ironically enough, I worked every day, all day, on the writing. I worked with Sonny Limbo, who became my producer, and within 18 months I had the #1 song in the nation, which scared the devil out of me.
Well, Key Largo, a classic song, absolute classic, great song, great record. Tell us about the song, because there's some personal parts to this song. How did Key Largo, how did you write that? How did it come about?
Well, I was going with a girl named Beverly Seaberg, who's also from Tarpon Springs, and we split up, and I really loved her a lot, and I was broken up. So that's another reason I left Florida and came to Atlanta. She followed me up there. Wow.
Followed
One night I sat up and I said, the only way you're going to pull this girl back in your life is get something on the radio and quit jerking around here. Let's get it done. So then I started writing Key Largo for her. We had spent a lot of time in the Florida Keys and liked old movies and put it together. And I was a big Bogart fan. I still am. And
I'm reading a book about Bogart right now. It's interesting, very interesting guy, very interesting guy.
Well, he's a multifaceted guy. He was a water boy too. Couldn't stay off the ocean with his sailboat. But funny thing about the song, I finally put it together. Sonny came in and gave me one line that was not in the song, Sonny Limbo, and the line was, "Here's looking at you, kid." So I put it in the song and took it to Bill Lowry, our publisher, and Bill was a big man, maybe over 300 pounds. And when I sat on the edge of his desk and played it with my old nylon string guitar, he literally got up out of his chair and started dancing. He said, "Lad, you've finally done it. You've written one." He said, "If this song ever gets legs, it'll live forever."
Let me insert here for those listening. Bill Lowry, who's no longer with us, but Bill was a great music guy. He was the top music guy really in Atlanta and the whole southeast area. And he really was known for being able to pick songs, had a big publishing company and tons of hits, Billy Joe Royal, Atlanta Rhythm Section, just so many different songs, big hits. And for him to jump up and dance about your song, if you're a writer, was a great day, because they said he really, really had some great ears.
Well, Bill couldn't play an instrument, but I'm telling you, the worst thing he would tell you, it needs a little work, lad. That's when you just pick up your guitar and walk out the door. That's the worst thing he would tell you. He said, but he never wanted to discourage anyone from writing, because it's a tough gig, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's a tough gig. But he had amazing ears. This guy published maybe 50 household words. I Like the Nightlife. Let's go down the list. It goes forever. The guy had incredible ears. It started way back with Bebop-A-Lula for Gene Vincent. That's how far back he went. And he was just a marvelous man.
And of course, many of Buddy Bowie's songs. Buddy was with Bill, and Buddy had so many big hits. I mean, tons of big hits.
Well, Joe South.
Joe South,
they're all out there, man.
Yeah, Joe South.
Ray Stevens. I mean, the list goes on. But at any rate, Bill, then it took us months to get it recorded. And I went to Joel Katz in Atlanta, a lawyer, who had formed a label called Cat Family Records. It was distributed by Columbia, or CBS Sony, basically. Sony hadn't bought them yet. And it was because of that Key Largo had such penetration. I mean, I was all over the world. I'd go into a record store in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, and my products would be on the shelf. The same in Singapore, on the shelf, but that's Columbia, really a huge distribution system.
Oh, listen, I know. They were the right label for our song. Without that, we would have, been in big trouble. But you're right. They were the absolute best for distribution. Man, they were great.
Yep. Well, that was Joel Katz. He took the song, turned it down 4 times, and finally took the song and pressed 5,000 copies and sent it to radio, and it exploded. It took a little while, though. That song was in the charts. 35 weeks.
When did you know it was a hit, Bert? When did you get up and say, "Man, I got a big hit"? When did you know?
Well, it reached 76 in the charts and lost the bullet. For those of you who don't know what a bullet is, it's when a song is smoking up the charts, moving quickly. It lost the bullet, and we all panicked. But when it started easing toward the top 40, I realized we have got something here. But I never realized after all these years that it would still be literally changing people's lives. I've gotten emails saying we got married, we had kids, we got back together, I didn't murder my wife, whatever it was, it changed their lives. And I'm going, you never realize when you write something and get exposure what it's going to do to the world. It's an amazing thing.
You're right. You get some of the oddest stories from people about things. In fact, I remember about a year after our song was a hit, I'm listening to Casey Kasem, and he does a long-distance dedication, and it was about us. A girl had met some guy in a game place, and some long story, and they broke up, and just wherever you're out there listening, this is a song to you. And they played our song, which to be a Casey Kasem long-distance dedication was pretty wild, especially for a song like ours. I mean, it's not exactly a love song. but very interesting.
You know what? If I had to tell you how it all came to pass, I couldn't. There were so many twists and turns. Normally a producer comes to you, he has a record deal, takes you in the studio, records a song, and releases it, and it's either a stiff or a hit. With me, this thing went around and around. It took a year. I had to borrow money from my mother to record it. I think we spent about $700 cutting Key Largo.
Did you ever pay her back?
Yes, I don't know.
You know, interesting thing too. If you remember at the time, Paul Davis had, I think it was '65 Love Affair, and at one time it was your song, Paul's, and our song, and all three of our records were in the top 10 of Billboard. 3 records from Atlanta in the top 10 at one time. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. Atlanta. I don't know what it's doing right now musically. I'm sure it's a lot of rap and hip hop. But
the capital of that, from what I'm told.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. At one time, Atlanta was a hot spot for great. I call it the Great American Songbook, which doesn't exist right now. But I got a feeling it may come around because I'm a song guy, man, and I miss the songs. I really miss the songs.
Well, let's talk about that now. Let's talk about what's going on with Bertie Higgins now, because there's a lot of stuff happening. You've got a song that's real big in China right now. You've been to China. Tell us about a little bit what's going on, and you're doing movies too. Tell us about what's going on.
Well, it's amazing when I go to YouTube and I put my name in. There's so many videos, I don't even know where they come from. There's hundreds. But Key Largo's got about 1.8 million hits. Casablanca has almost 3 million. And it's a much bigger song worldwide than Key Largo ever was. And we wrote it at the same time.
Wasn't that a follow-up single for you?
No, it was not. And Bill Lowry always said it should have been.
Oh.
He's probably right. But what happened, it started in Japan several years ago, became quadruple platinum. It was #1 by me in English and #2 by a Sony artist named Hiromi Go in Japanese. And then it spread through the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, that whole Pacific Rim, South Korea, and then it kind of sat. Well, when China finally kicked their doors open and started pulling in Western music, Casablanca exploded all over again. And this is fairly recently. So here I got probably, if not the #1, probably in the top 3 karaoke songs in mainland China. And mainland China is huge. So I go over there and tour. Me and Michael Bolton last Chinese New Year's did their Chinese New Year's Eve gala, which is on CCTV in China. 1 billion people watched it. And it was amazing. I mean, so now I'm in demand in China. And I love China, and I love the Chinese people. I'd love to go there and hang because it's just great. So now it's coming around again. I got a call from an agent yesterday, or my manager, about another tour of Japan. And I haven't been to Japan in 15 years, so it just keeps rolling.
Well,
thank God.
That's well. Well, now I know that you've also got into the movie business. You've had several releases, and you've got a current movie that you're working on right now. In fact, you guys have been working night and day, and I appreciate you taking time out to talk to us. Tell us about your new project.
Well, we're done as of this week on our final post-production on the new movie called Christmas in Hollywood.
Christmas in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little, without giving it away, can you tell us a little bit about what the storyline is?
About a little Chinese boy whose mother has passed away. He's living in Shanghai. His father's moved to the States a year prior to start a business for a better life. And his aunt has been watching him, wants to go back to college for a master's degree. Can't watch him anymore, so sends him to his father. And his father's remarried an American woman. The kid does not like the American woman. He doesn't believe in Santa Claus. He's 12 years old, and he's quite cantankerous. Well, as the film goes on, a lot of magic starts happening. His uncle is played by me, actually. Uncle Bart is kind of a spiritual sort of guy. And then we
Uncle Bart.
So he's got to convince, this boy's got to convince 3 people that the spirit of Christmas is still alive, to have an audience with Santa, because the bank has repoed his dad's restaurant illegally, and he wants Dad to get his restaurant back. And so it all ends up at Santa's place with Santa. We had a great Santa, by the way. In fact, I believed he was Santa. He was so real.
So where do we get? When will this be officially released? And where can we see it?
It'll be available very soon.
In
fact, I've been considering doing it on my own Facebook temporarily before Christmas to get it out there. But it will not be a self-release thing unless I decide to do that. Facebook and my fans from my website. It's a thought. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. But if not, it'll be out commercially. If it doesn't make the theaters here, it'll be on Netflix, Redbox, iTunes. It'll be on all the venues that you can buy DVDs from.
Well, we're going to put a link up on our website to the trailer and also to your site so people can keep checking in and see where they can see the whole film.
Correct.
Well, Bertie, I want to thank you so much for being on the show and taking time out because you're a very busy guy. It's a busy time of the year, and we'll be looking for the movie. And I know you've got. Are you working on any new music, any new albums or anything, singles?
Buck, I'm working on my 18th CD.
18. Wow.
I've got 18 out, but including movie soundtracks. They're all distributed by Toucan Cove, distributed by Universal Music. I'm no longer with Sony, but I'm now with Universal. I have been for the last 5 or 6 years. The new CD is a live CD that we recorded at Center Stage in Atlanta several years ago when it was Bertie Higgins Day in Atlanta. It was packed. We sold out Center Stage on West Peachtree, and we're mixing that live CD now. The next one I've already written songs for is coming out somewhere, I would think, mid-spring. So that'll be a nice round figure of 20 CDs.
So is there a website you want to shout out to everybody to check out real quick?
Well, the easiest thing about me is just put my name in YouTube. That's Bertie Higgins.
Okay.
Put it in YouTube, and there's hundreds of videos. You can also go to my personal website, BertieHiggins.com, which is in dire need of repair, but it's still okay for now.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, Bertie Higgins, and I can't thank you enough for being on the program. Thank you so much, Bertie. Good luck with everything you're doing. We're going to keep track of it, and we'll talk again and maybe do an update a year from now, okay?
Okay, Jerry, one more thing. We're cutting what is called a full trailer right now. We should have it done in the next 48 hours. What you've seen is a teaser trailer. It's only, less than a minute. But the full trailer is what we will put on YouTube, and you'll be able to link right to it, okay?
Beautiful. Okay.
Give me about 2 days, okay, brother?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Bertie Higgins. Thanks for being on the show, Bertie.
Wrapped around each other, trying so hard to stay warm. That first cold winter together, lying in each other's arms, watching those old movies, falling in love so desperately. Honey, I was your hero, and you were my leading lady. We had it all, just like Bogey and Bacall, starring in our own late, late show, sailing away to keep